Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us here on This Is Now. We begin with breaking news. 2 burglary suspects accused of leading Hawaii Island police on a chase and shooting at 3 officers are now in custody.
Yeah, this is still a developing story, but this is what we know so far. Police say 27-year-old Dylan Alcane and 35-year-old Leilani Parent were allegedly involved in 2 burglaries in the Captain Cook area. Now, officers spotted the pair in a BMW at around 4 a.m. on Mamalahua Highway and Rabbit Hill Road. Police say Alcane refused to stop, and during the pursuit, gunshots were fired from a rifle at 3 responding officers. Now, officials say 2 officers' vehicles were struck, including one whose windshield was shattered by the gunfire, but no officers were injured. Then at around 5 a.m., about an hour later, the duo was suspected of stealing a Ford Explorer at gunpoint in the Kealakekua area. Alcane and Parent have since been captured and again are now in police custody. We'll have more on this story on later editions of Hawaii News Now. Meanwhile, tonight there will be a candlelight vigil for the victims of a deadly shooting at a chicken fight in Ma'ili. This as one of the suspects appeared in court virtually today. This is new video of shooting suspect 23-year-old Jacob Borge. He was charged with first-degree murder, second-degree murder, 3 counts of attempted murder, and firearms offenses. His bail was confirmed at $2 million today, and his next court appearance is scheduled for Monday. Now, the second suspect is a 16-year-old boy, so authorities have to get a court's permission before filing charges. HPD's chief told police commissioners he's exploring ways to crack down on illegal chicken fights,
such as shutting down illegal concerts, illegal rave events and other things like that we've previously done in the Kalihi district just a couple weeks ago. How do we use those entities to help us close down these chicken fighting derbies?
3 people were wounded in the shooting early Saturday, and Gary and Kathy Rabaliza were killed. The vigil will be held for them tonight at Ma'ili Beach Park at 5:30.
A 47-year-old has been convicted of dousing a sleeping homeless man with a gasoline mixture and lighting him on fire in downtown Honolulu 2 years ago. A jury yesterday found William Woods guilty of second-degree attempted murder. Prosecutors say the victim suffered second and third degree burns over 18% of his body. Woods could face life in prison with a chance of parole when he's sentenced in August.
We have a couple of updates on Red Hill that you should know about. First, there's a hearing in federal court today. It's about the lawsuit filed against the government for the contaminated drinking water that made thousands sick. One filing reads, quote, "The United States Navy released 19,000 gallons of jet fuel and other carcinogens directly into the drinking water for 93,000 people on Oahu and then chose not to warn residents to stop drinking toxic water," end quote. Our crews are planning to be in court covering today's developments.
We've also learned that nearly 1,100 gallons of water have been removed from 14 fuel tanks at Red Hill. It was all condensation that took 3 days to separate from the jet fuel, so the fuel maintains its quality when it's removed. The water will now be stored in an above-ground holding tank. The military still has to complete nearly 80 repairs by the end of May before the fuel can be removed from the tanks. That's expected to start this fall and finish in mid-2024. Officials said the tanks will be fully closed by August of 2027, but the military does want to reuse the tanks somehow, despite some opposition. They're soliciting ideas for how it could be reused.
We've already received about 250 recommendations, and the survey's only been live for 2 weeks now. But a couple of them I've seen is one was using it as a data center. Another recommendation was using it for water storage.
Wow, so those are 2 vastly different things, right?
Yeah.
This is obviously a big facility. It would store a lot of data, or it would store a lot of water.
If you'd like to submit a comment, you can find a link to the survey at hawaiinewsnow.com.
And this just in, the city is notifying the public of elevated bacteria levels found in a sample of treated effluent taken from the Kailua Regional Wastewater Treatment Plant. Officials said the sample was taken yesterday at the monitoring station prior to discharging at the deep ocean outfall. Additional samples are being collected. Meanwhile, DOH has issued a brown water advisory for Oahu following the recent heavy rain. The public is advised to stay out of the water.
A driver who critically injured a Honolulu police officer months after being arrested for DUI finally had his license revoked. In an H&N exclusive, our Lynn Kawano has more on how the case is drawing criticism to the practice of giving permits to suspected drunk drivers. Lynn?
Yeah, Dylan, you know, the ADLRO, which is the Administrative Driver's License Revocation Office, that program was started to get suspected drunk drivers off the road quicker. But critics are saying that that's just not happening.
Do you have your license registration?
Tolentino Martinez was stopped on January 14th for traffic violation.
Anything to drink tonight, sir?
The officer suspected he was drunk and called for another to administer field sobriety tests.
Yeah, heel to toe, so like a straight line.
Martinez did multiple tests.
Your leg gotta be straight, don't bend your knee.
According to court records, he took a breath test, which showed he had an alcohol content of 0.143, above the legal limit of 0.08. His license was revoked, and he was given a temporary 30-day permit with no restrictions until he could get a hearing with the Administrative Driver's License Revocation Office. That was set for February 7th, but was continued because one of the officers was not available. Martinez was given another month extension until March 10th, the date of the next hearing. But less than 2 weeks later, Martinez is accused of slamming into Officer Felix Gassman, who was working a crash on the H3 the night of February 19th. Gassman was critically injured and is still hospitalized. Martinez's attorney, Jonathan Bird, says his client was not drunk that night, but swerved to avoid another car.
The officers were there at the scene. They actually saw everything that happened, and they saw how the white car just stopped in the middle of the freeway, and then he swerved to avoid it. He said the road was wet.
Burge says his client was not arrested because it was just a horrible accident. Another defense attorney, Victor Baki, says the driver's license revocation office should not extend permits without adding restrictions on when a driver can be behind the wheel.
And it's not uncommon to have drivers driving on extended permits for months and months after the original arrest.
The state judiciary, which runs the office, said in a statement the process to revoke a license after a DUI includes protecting the driver's constitutional right to due process, including the right to a hearing to confront witnesses. If the witnesses are not available, then state law requires the case be continued.
Lynn Kawano, thank you so much for that report. It seems like there are flaws in this system. Can you identify some of them?
You know, one of them was highlighted in that story. You get this permit for 30 days. It's unrestricted, meaning you can drive anywhere, anytime. You can go wherever you want, to a bar if you want to, you know, even though you're suspected of drunk driving. Some critics say they should make that where you can only go to and from work, or a judge should tell you as part of your condition of the bail, maybe. Victor Baki, one of the attorneys in the story, actually thinks that the process is just not working properly, especially when you get extensions. The extensions is what happened here, and that's what's under criticism here in this story, is you get the initial 30 days where you get to contest and try to get your license back, but then that got continued, right, because the officer couldn't make it, which happens, those things happen, but the continuation is what people are critical of, and the statute says that it may be continued, but that means it may not, and so some legal experts say they need to crack down on that, and if it just doesn't happen in those 30 days, it just doesn't happen, and the license gets taken away until the criminal case can be completed.
Is there a push to change all of this? And if there is, what would that look like and what's next?
Not really. There's been a lot of critics over the years. This case kind of highlights that. I've heard this complaint many times that someone goes out and gets another accident. But this one, because that officer was so badly hurt, he's still hospitalized. This is months later. He's still hospitalized and in need of a lot of care, long-term, a lot of care. It's going to be very expensive. But not just that. We lost an officer from the streets, So because of this case, this highlights that if he hadn't gotten that extension, he would not have been allowed to drive. Now, that doesn't mean that no one drives. It just, he wouldn't have been allowed to drive. And if he followed the rules, he wouldn't have been on the road that night. So the officer wouldn't have been hurt. There's a series of things here that you can't control all of them. But some legal experts say this process needs to be taken a look at. It needs to be reviewed again, just to see if these extensions are necessary and really if we should be doing them at all.
Our chief investigative reporter, Lynn Kawano, thanks for joining us here on This Is Now.
The state transportation director is pushing to install speed enforcement cameras on Hawaii's roads. 20 years ago, mobile enforcement units called van cams created a ruckus among some drivers that gave speed cameras a bad reputation here. But with speed-related deaths high, DOT Director Ed Sniffen is lobbying for speed cameras, much like the red light cameras installed around Honolulu.
We're gonna mount them in one place. We're gonna put up signs that says you're being monitored by speed cameras in this area. So if you speed, it's all on you now.
The city transportation director says public support for speed cams may depend on the success of red light cameras, but could be useful as part of a strategy that also includes speed humps and other engineering tactics to slow people down.
Well, the deadline to file your state taxes has arrived. Our Billy V has the details from the state capitol.
Thank you very much. That's correct. If you are a resident, non-resident, or even if you've done business here in the state of Hawaii in the last year, you'll need to file those taxes today. Now, if for some reason you can't make it today, you get an automatic 6-month extension. If you're getting money back, you don't have to file an extension. You just have to file by October 20th of this year. If you owe money, you still got to pay your taxes today and file the voucher, or you could wind up having to pay penalties and interest. You can file electronically if you have the means, meaning you have access to a computer that is online. Just go to the Department of Taxation's website. Tax forms are also available online. You can check your refund status online. And if for some reason you can't get your question answered by going through the State of Department or the State Department of Taxation website, then you can always call one of their agents. They're available by phone 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Monday through Friday. We do have the website and the contact numbers on our website right now at hawaiinewsnow.com. And real quickly, let's give you a tax tip to kind of help you. If you don't want your refund delayed, then make sure that you've got your facts and figures, of course, correct, but also make sure that your personal information is correct and make sure that you sign that tax form, because not signing the tax form or getting any of that information wrong could delay your refund. From the state capitol, I'm Billy V for This Is Now.
New at noon, prosecutors in New Mexico plan to drop charges against Alec Baldwin in the fatal 2021 shooting of a cinematographer on the set of the Western film Rust. Baldwin's attorney said in a statement today that they are pleased with the decision to dismiss the case. The actor and the film's weapons supervisor, Hannah Gutierrez-Reed, were both charged with involuntary manslaughter in the shooting of cinematographer Helena Hutchins. Baldwin was pointing a pistol at Hutchins during a rehearsal when the gun went off, killing Hutchins and wounding director Joel Souza. The future of a popular abortion pill and the healthcare options for American women, even the viability of U.S. regulatory approvals for routine drugs are all in question as the Supreme Court deliberates an important abortion case ahead of a Friday deadline. Mike Valerio has more.
Confusion for care providers.
This is honestly a game of hockey where you have no idea where the puck is.
As the Supreme Court weighs a decision on access to the abortion medication mifepristone. On Wednesday, Supreme Court Justice Samuel Alito gave the court more time to consider the issue, extending a temporary hold on an order by a federal judge in Texas that would block access to the drug.
17 states in the District of Columbia have been ordered to keep mifepristone access as it is, and a judge who who purported to issue a nationwide injunction telling the FDA to change the way that mifepristone is being administered. And so you do have a conflict, which is why the Supreme Court definitely needs to do something about it.
The reason for that extension is unclear, as is the path the High Court will take, but the decisions the justices could make will have wide-ranging implications beyond if and when mifepristone can be used. One question at issue, can a single judge or panel overrule the FDA? The precedent set by the ruling could create chaos in the pharmaceutical industry and threaten the regulatory system that approves new treatments. This is causing concern within the medical community.
This case is a challenge to how we practice medicine as healthcare providers.
And on both sides of the aisle in Washington.
They basically have said this, the last two judges, hey, guess what? We know better than the FDA.
It could be this drug today, and who knows what the next one might be.
I'm Mike Valerio reporting.
The GOP-controlled House of Representatives passed a bill today that would ban transgender women and girls from competing in female school sports. Now, the measure is one of hundreds of anti-LGBTQ bills across the U.S. Skylar Henry reports from Washington.
The bill is passed.
By a vote of 219 to 203, the Republican-controlled House passed a bill it named the Protection of Women and Girls in Sports Act. H.R. 734 bars schools that receive federal funding from allowing a person whose biological sex assigned at birth was male to participate in women or girls' athletic programs.
This is about protecting women's sports.
The perverse biological fantasies of the left are both dangerous and a direct threat to women's sports.
NCAA volleyball player Macy Petty joined Republicans before the vote. She recalled competing against a transgender athlete at a college recruitment event.
I did not sign up to be in a co-ed league. I signed up to be in a women's league.
Democrats point out the NCAA and other groups already have policies in place and accuse the GOP of trying to score points with its base.
Let's allow the relevant organizations involved in elite sports competition to do what they do and to set the framework and the boundaries.
The measure isn't expected to go anywhere. It doesn't have support in the Democrat-controlled Senate or the White House.
We've been very clear that the administration is committed to protecting LGBTQI+ kids at school.
At least 20 states have imposed restrictions on trans athletes. Skylar Henry, CBS News, Washington.
Here's a live look outside. It's a beautiful day. Let's get you over to Guy Hoggy with your first alert forecast.
There is that storm front. You can see it. It's very, very weak compared to what we saw yesterday, right? And there's still a trailing field of some moisture, so it's not totally dry out there. But with those afternoon light winds and afternoon pop-up showers, there's available moisture for that. So we could see some pop-up showers anywhere across the state, especially for those interior and mountain sections. And then that front actually backs up. We'll see a few more showers tomorrow morning. Through the day, we'll see those showers as well. But nothing too heavy, just some light showers, maybe some afternoon downpours. But then by Saturday, that moisture moves away. And then by Monday, another weak front comes in, and this front's kind of going to stall around Maui through the middle to latter part of next week. So your 7-day forecast shows relatively calm conditions, not totally dry. There will be some pop-up showers, and then that front again between Monday and Tuesday.
There was high drama at the maiden launch of the Starship rocket. The liftoff made history for SpaceX, but not exactly as planned. Bradley Blackburn explains.
It was a jaw-dropping sight. The massive SpaceX rocket lifting off on its first test flight in a ball of flame and smoke.
What a sight!
At nearly 400 feet tall, the Starship is the biggest and most powerful rocket ever built. It's designed to bring Elon Musk's company a step closer to sending humans back to the moon and one day to Mars.
Onboard view from Starship.
With no astronauts on board, the maiden voyage was designed to last just 90 minutes, taking off from the Gulf Coast of Texas, where a crowd gathered to watch.
We've just witnessed history, and I'm just excited to be a part of it.
But as the control center watched for the booster to separate, it was clear something had gone wrong.
We should have had separation by now. Obviously, this does not appear to be a nominal situation.
Less than 4 minutes into the flight, this dramatic ending. The rocket ship exploding over the Gulf of Mexico. CBS News space analyst Bill Harwood was watching.
The exhaust plume out of the base of the rocket sort of went asymmetrically, and a few seconds after that it started a slow tumble and then exploded. We think the automatic self-destruct system activated.
Still, from the ashes of failure, SpaceX claims the launch was a success. The rocket did not reach orbit, but it did get off the ground, setting the stage for the next attempt. Bradley Blackburn, CBS News, New York.
All right, well, it's time to check out some good news now. Interesting about that rocket there.
Yeah, they were very glass half full people.
Yes, hey, as long as it gets off the ground.
Yeah.
A recent study found that exercise may be more effective than prescription drugs in treating depression and anxiety. Our H&N digital content producer Megan Ramones talked with a Hawaii veteran who shares how picking up a barbell has changed her life.
Sierra Adams is one of the top female powerlifters in the state, and she was recently diagnosed with several mental disorders. Today, she shares her story of how she uses her strength to break barriers both in the gym and in mental health. Imagine rising from a squat with a barbell 3 times your body weight, stretched across your back. For Sierra Adams, it's a mood booster.
When you're locked in, you're zoned in, and you're ready to go, and you know that, the weight on the bar, it's your time to shine, that's like the coolest feeling ever.
The 27-year-old is one of the strongest female powerlifters in Hawaii. She's also an active duty staff sergeant in the Air Force. The 6-year veteran was named Best Lifter at last November's USA Powerlifting Makahiki Open after lifting a combined total of 953 pounds. And all that lifting helps her feel lighter.
It empowers me. It makes me feel like I can pretty much do anything.
Deployed for 7 months in Qatar, working nearly 13 hours a day, 6 days a week, Sierra turned to powerlifting as a way of coping through the COVID-19 pandemic. Sierra says she struggled with depression for 20 years and was recently diagnosed with PTSD, OCD, and a hair-pulling disorder called trichotillomania. Today, the gym is her safe haven, and powerlifting, her life's passion.
To me, it's freeing. There's a lot of stress that I build up, and when I go to the gym, it's a great place for me to let it out.
But carrying the weight hasn't always been easy. Sierra says a panic attack at the gym briefly left her sidelined.
I felt like my vulnerability was just completely exposed at that point. People actually saw me at my worst.
But she stuck with it, building her confidence and inspiring others. Experts say having an outlet and a hobby can offer great mental health benefits. But Sierra says seeking professional help is still vital.
If we can treat mental health like any other physical, medical condition, I feel like the world would be a better place.
And Sierra feels so strongly about the power of powerlifting, she's now taken on a new role. Coach.
I currently have 3 athletes. I'm still in the works, and I'm still, trial and error with my coaching.
But her athletes say it's a perfect fit.
She honestly encourages me to be the best version of myself inside the gym and outside of the gym.
Sierra says she finds joy in lifting up others with a simple message.
In no way, shape, or form are you alone in your journey. Remember to be patient with yourself. Remember to give yourself grace. And also to remember to love yourself the way you love others.
While Sierra's grateful for the progress she's made, she's committing herself to achieving more PRs, both in the gym and in life. If you or anyone else you know is in a crisis, call 988. For a full list of mental health resources, visit hawaiinewsnow.com. This is Megan Ramones, Hawaii News Now.
Thank you so much, Megan, for that awesome story. We
Yes.
love to see the positive angle out of that.
Oh, yeah. Self-care, self-love, all about it.
Yeah, most definitely. We're going to end today with a live look out over Kaka'ako Waterfront Park. It is a beautiful day. We thank you all so much for joining us here on This Is Now. Be sure to catch Ashley again at First at 4 on KHNL.
Aloha.